Jeff Dawson here, Amazon author of Love's True Second Chance, which is a true story of my high school sweetheart, Debbie Beck. We reunited after 30 years, spent 7 wonderful months together until her breast cancer returned and took her life, 7/20/2009. That's not what the story's about. It's about the time that we spent together and how much loving we were able to enjoy in the short time we had together, which after over 30 years was just about a year and a half combined time. Also, another book, Why Did Everything Happen, which chronicles my partner, my father, and Debbie. I lost all 3 of them to cancer and didn't understand why. My questions were answered at a cemetery in Seagoville, Texas, on August 20th, a month after Debbie passed away, which is quite revealing, and living with breast cancer and what it's like for a person to go through this. I'm also recording this as a podcast that can be heard on Breaker, Google Podcast, Radio Public, Spotify, and Pocket Casts. My handwriting is horrible. So I'm going to list some names here, and I want to see if you've even heard of them. Sequoia Turner, Royta DeMarcos Giles, Devon McNeil, Natalia Wallace, and Jessica Dottie. I'll throw 2 other names out there, George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks. So of those names, which 2 do you readily identify? The last 2, correct? We all know that what happened to George Floyd was murder. That's it. Rayshard Brooks, not so much. Man gets a DUI, and he knows he's going back to jail. But that's not the point of this. The first ones I mentioned were children. And they are African American children. The last one, Jessica, wasn't. So here we have this big BLM movement. Where's the outrage over the deaths of these children in drive-by shootings? Where was Al Sharpton? Where was Jesse Jackson? They're nowhere to be found. Did you see their faces on the news? No. You didn't even see Lori Lightfoot come out in an outrage over these shootings, which she did come out all of a sudden. It's like Lucky Charms, only it's not magically delicious. Oh, this is because of gun control. We don't have gun control. You in New York have some of the strictest gun control laws in the United States. It's called deflection. And what's really scary is that woman has a 75% approval rating in Chicago. So what does that tell you about the residents of Chicago? They must really enjoy not having law and order. I didn't see them marching down the streets demanding justice for these children that were killed. I didn't see the celebrities standing arm in arm with GoFundMe accounts. I didn't see any of this. And what's even more appalling about the whole thing is I have plenty of liberal, some are friends and some are just acquaintances, that are all up in arms. They're all for defunding the police. They're all for BLM. They're all for this crap. Not one posted anything about these children being murdered in their at home, at parties, Not one. Someone tell me why. I just want an honest answer. Why? Now, they will debate everything else, and they will talk about that these are peaceful protests, and that's only a small contingent that are causing the disruption. A small contingent doesn't burn down a city. That is organized, and we've all seen the videos. How did all these people know that these stores were going to be broken into? It was coordinated. Everybody's got a cell phone now. You don't have to go to a payphone. You can just say, hey, we're here at Target. We're here at Walmart. We're here at Sam's. We're here at the jewelry store. We're going to break in. Come get what's yours. Well, you know something? It isn't yours in the first place. You don't have the damn money. You don't go in the store. But then you have people like AOC, who she just makes stupid look dumber every day. If I was the word stupid, I would raise my hand and call up Merriam-Webster and say, could you please stop this? Because they're giving me a bad name. I've got enough trouble with my own identity, and now they're just sabotaging me all to hell. So where's all this outrage? Well, here's where the outrage is. The McCluskeys in St. Louis, David Nelson and Nicole Anderson in California. Oh my God, the McCluskeys were defending their property. They were being threatened, and they didn't get off of their property. But now the district attorney is going to try and file charges against them. You are coming onto my property, and you're damn right I'm going to defend it. Now, Nelson and Anderson, what did they do? Well, they expressed their First Amendment right, and they on freedom of speech, and they did not accept Black Lives Matter being painted on the streets. So they came out and painted over it. And that's a hate crime. Painting over graffiti is now a hate crime. Someone explain to me how that works. Was anyone physically harmed? No. What law was broken? You could say graffiti defacing public property because it is a public street. Well, you painted Black Lives Matter on it. And I had one liberal associate say, well, it was commissioned. So it's destruction of private property. And you know how I responded to him? Oh, so then all these monuments and statues that are being torn down that were commissioned by the cities and the governments of the state or the federal government isn't a crime? You all figure out the logic behind that. I thought that was just the dumb ass answer I have seen in any of the debates I've had with some of these people. Painting over the street is a hate crime because it was a commissioned piece of work, but all the other commissioned pieces of work are not. You tell me how the law works. And while a few people agreed with what I posted, he was just silent. But the real issue is, where's the outrage for these children? Where is the outrage for Jessica Dottie, who was murdered because she didn't agree with the BLM movement, which is nothing more than a communist Marxist operation. And all you got to do is go to their site to donate, and it's going to take you to Act Blue, which is the biggest laundry machine the DNC has. The war chest is phenomenal. But I want to know where the outrage is for these children that were killed. And every weekend in Chicago, crime hasn't stopped. It didn't stop during the riots. It didn't stop before the riots. It has been going on for so long that people are just immune to it. Oh, well, that's just everyday life. Just like it was back in the 30s under Prohibition, and Al Capone and all the other bosses were fighting for control of Chicago, and the distribution and sale of illegal alcohol. Is that what we're going back to? And how many decades did it take to get Chicago back from the mobs and bring law and order? And then, of course, there was de Blasio out there showing his dumb ass in front of Trump Tower using New York Department of Transportation employees to paint Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower. For a city that is upside down and in debt and has had over 40,000 deaths from the COVID virus, I think that was a brilliant use of his time. You've got to be kidding me. And on this paint stuff, I'm in construction. Most of you drive the roads. Most of you drive the highways. You notice when a street is painted. Looks really good for a while, doesn't it? Well, they have yet to come up with a paint that will last a year under heavy traffic. It's got to be repainted. It's got to be repainted. So all of this foolishness that's going on is going to just eventually wear off. Unless the brain surgeons at City Hall decide, oh, we need to repaint that. Well, I hope you do it with private funds and not taxpayers' money, but I'm sure that isn't going to happen. Now, here's another name I want to throw in, and hopefully you haven't forgotten it, and maybe you have. David Dorn. Does that ring a bell? Kind of like Jeopardy. Waiting for that music interlude. Do, 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 and everybody's scratching their head going, who? For those that don't remember, this was the retired black police officer that was murdered by thugs and rioters who supposedly support BLM while he was protecting a friend's jewelry store, and he was killed in cold blood, just cold-blooded murder. Did you see Jesse or Al demanding justice? Did you see them put any money up for Crime Stoppers? Did you see any outrage at all? No, but you sure saw it at the funerals for George and Rayshard, didn't you? Why? Because that's the platform they want. That is the platform of divisiveness that they live off of. And all these people keep giving them money. I mean, hell, I don't know why Sharpton's not in jail. He still owes IRS like $5.4 million or something. But you don't see anybody cracking down on him. And how many times did he visit the White House when Obama was in office? Yeah, I lost count too. And the only mayor that has actually publicly come out and said this is wrong is Bottoms of Atlanta. Now, I understand she's a Democrat, but she has said some things that rivaled on being pretty on point. And she's finally admitted this isn't the cops killing our African American citizens. It's our citizens killing each other. Let that sink in. She's starting to see the light. Now, is she going to change her political affiliation and become Republican? Well, no. Because then she would not be true to herself. Now, does that mean she can become a moderate Democrat and say, okay, not everything the Republicans do is evil? There's a chance. And that's what we need right now. We don't need Republicans towing their line. We don't need the Democrats pulling their party wagon. We need them to pull their collective asses out of their butts. Collective heads out of their asses and start looking at America. I understand not liking Trump. This is a given. I wish the hell he'd stay off of Twitter and quit bashing the networks, because that is counterproductive and it is serving our country no purpose. And yeah, here we go. We thought that our choices in 16 were questionable. Well, look what we got in 20. We've got Joe Biden, who's 77 and can't remember where he's at, and Donald Trump again. Well, if you're a Democrat, there is no way in hell you're going to vote for Trump. I understand that. And as a Republican, it's like, okay, this again. I like his policies, but I still can't stand some bitch. And now he's criticizing Fox because they don't have his back. Well, they're not supposed to have your back. They're supposed to report the news, and every once in a while they actually do report the news. When they can put all their op-eds and their groups together, and we're interviewing Joe Sam, who's a Fox contributor and fellow of Columbia, who has written multiple articles. I don't give a damn about that. You spend half of your time introducing the guest, which I don't care. This is who it is. This is Joe Smith. What you got today? And let's move on. Oh, yeah, but we can't do that. We have to spend all the time giving everyone accolades on and on, just like who is it? I'll have to look his name up. The guy that was a New York cop and worked for the Secret Service, Ben Jonesy, I think. I don't need to hear his intro every time. That's why I usually don't watch it. There's more important things to do. But where is the outrage on all of these children that have been murdered? Now, what's it going to take to get real reform in these cities? And then I saw an article, it's been going on for a couple of days, I didn't completely research it, that New York wants their special task force back. Well, good luck with that, since de Blasio just cut $1 billion out of your budget. Tell you what, why don't you all get his personal phone number and call him and tell him that he really is a dumbass and this is not a good idea? Or is it going to take more violence, more deaths? I mean, just that other night, what was that, a week or so ago, where that kid was hanging out on the street corner in Brooklyn and had a couple of friends. They were just jamming to tunes and having a good time, bothering nobody, and this car pulls up and this black guy jumps out and just bitch slaps the white kid in the back of the head who's 14 years old and then runs off like a scared little bitch. Boy, that was real manly on your part. But hey, Bill, if that's what you want going on in your streets, keep defunding the police. Keep letting them retire. I'd like to see how many new recruits or candidates you have applying for the police academy. I have not been able to find that stat yet, but I bet it's dropped precipitously because you're a dumbass. And for you folks that live in these cities, Chicago, L.A., New York, Atlanta, is this really what you want? And if it is, then we have a real problem in America. We can go back to the old days of the Wild West. You really want to go through that? I don't think so. Gunfights in the streets and saying it was a legal shooting, whether it was or wasn't, or justified. I mean, that's where it's headed. And there was a country in the 20th century that had a similar situation. They got hammered after they lost World War I by the Versailles Treaty, and then they got crushed when the stock market collapsed in 29. And there was rioting through the streets. There was high unemployment, had an ineffective government, and it set the stage for a man to come to power that had no business coming into power, but he had a message. And he would bring back order, and then he'd bring back law. And that man was Adolf Hitler. And we really do not want to go down that boat again. So I just want you to think about, how come you didn't know the first names that I mentioned? Why aren't you outraged over these children being killed? And what do you plan to do about it? Or are you just going to sit at home and say, it's not my problem, until the bullets come flying through your neighborhood?